Hello, I'm Paula Williams and I'm a Senior Curator at the National Library of Scotland. I've recently taken over as Curator for mountain and polar collections, which we're very lucky to have one of the best polar collections in the United Kingdom. From January the 12th, you'll be able to come and see some of the highlights of the polar collections being displayed in Scott's last expedition in the Treasures Display area of the National Library of Scotland. We're coming up for the centenary of Scott and his men finding the South Pole. The story is quite well known that Amundsen beat them to it, but Scott and his men managed to travel a round trip of about 1,500 miles through some of the worst conditions on Earth, hauling their sledges and all the food that they needed to eat and the tents and their equipment behind them. Scott recorded most of the expedition in his diaries as he went along, and even 10 years after the expedition's outcome was known, it was still a very popular story and was selling really well in their cheap editions. His diaries, however, were edited so that the main parts, or the slightly contentious parts, were taken out. And the story, I think, has been contentious ever since the party made it home. It raises questions in our minds about the difference between heroism and tragedy and between success and failure. Were they a success because they made it to the pole, or did they fail because they died on the way home? It was as important to the members of the party to carry out scientific experiments as it was for them to get to the South Pole. Indeed, one of the members who made it to the South Pole, Dr. Wilson, said when he got there that he didn't mind that Amundsen had beaten them to it because effectively they'd already done all the things that they said they wanted to do. The map here, which is also on the display, shows how the new knowledge that came back after the expedition was translated for public use. The pink areas are the areas of land that have been explored or a little bit is known about, but you can still see that there's a huge area of white in the middle. And it was this urge to fill in the white bits of the map that I think had driven both this expedition and Amundsen's, and indeed many since. And to this day, there's lots of areas of Antarctica that haven't been filled in, that people have never been to because the conditions are just so extreme. Which makes you wonder how these men 100 years ago, in their cotton and wool coats, managed to drag their heavy sledges over a distance of 800 miles to reach the pole at all. The whole expedition raises questions of the difference between success and failure. And I personally believe that the whole thing was a great success. They achieved what they had gone to do, and I don't think you can ask any more of people than what they did. It's been a real pleasure to work with the collections here at the National Library of Scotland. We're very lucky in that we have probably the second best polar collection in the United Kingdom after the Scott Polar Research Institute. We also have very good collections on mountaineering, which of course goes hand in hand with the polar exploration.